I am Thabo, Mdluli. Good to have you on this Tuesday evening. Home Affairs Minister Dr. Motsoaledi, I guess, tonight. He tabled his department's number 5 budget. The minister promised to deal with a series of measures to deal with long queues at Home Affairs offices. The department recently faced legal battles between what you can describe as the Zimbabwean Exemption Permit Holders Association over the extension of the permits. He's here to unpack this story. Joining us now, Dr. Motsoaledi, who tabled his 9.4 billion rands budget vote number 5. And coming in, he was almost as a prophet who was determining what would be a priority for many who would be listening. And one of those things was issues around civic services. But the other issue that he would need to speak to is the question of immigration. We're going to look at a number of issues that then he dealt with. In fact, he dealt with close to 12 points, particularly when it comes to civic services, and then touched on migration and touched on other issues. Minister, good to have you.
Thank you, Thabo. Good evening, and good evening to the listeners and viewers out there.
9.4 billion is what you tabled in front of parliamentarians. I know you wanted them to vote for your budget, but I suppose the most important people that should give you a thumbs up, because really they can't vote for your budget, is the South Africans. So you need to justify to them why they must give you another 9.4 billion of their tax money this year, when in at least the last couple of years when you've tabled a budget, you had promised that you're dealing with queues, you're dealing with Home Affairs being offline, you're dealing with the shortage of staffing, you're dealing with all these issues. But up until now, you don't seem to have a handle on those issues because, I mean, we're judging by what we see. We look outside, there are long queues still at Home Affairs. And there's even a business mushrooming there with people who are selling seats and umbrellas and all sorts of things. And there are others who are now beginning to engage in corruption, skipping queues and so on and so forth. Why should South Africans give you this budget of 9.4 billion?
Because we actually need more than that to deal with the problem. Because you realize that 9.5 billion is actually after a huge cut. A huge budget was cut from Home Affairs, actually more than 900 million. And most of it is for staffing. So we actually need much more than that from what the department does. But as you are aware, the economy is quite in trouble. But be that as it may, Thabo, yes, the issue of long queues in Home Affairs is a big problem. Yeah. I don't sleep. We spend sleepless nights about it because nobody wants to do that. Thabo, nobody likes to queue. Let's make that clear. Yeah. Whether you go to the bank or SASA or wherever, nobody wants to queue. You like to arrive there and be served and go away. So we are very much acutely aware of that. But I said there are numerous problems that leads to this issue. The biggest of them all is what we call system downtime. Yeah. Because quite often, even when the queue is not that long, if the systems are down, and they could go down for about 3 hours or even more, obviously people will accumulate. So last year, we went together with SITA, the State Information Technology Agency. Remember, this is the institution that provides us with technology. Because in Home Affairs, without technology, you won't be able to do anything. So we went to SITA, to the Portfolio Committee to examine this issue. And we agreed on several issues that needs to be done. Now today, I was reporting back. Yeah. Yes, you are aware, you are right. They did happen for a long time. But I was reporting back about what is happening now. Yeah. Firstly, we need to revamp the whole network of SITA. Yes. And SITA has just started. Yeah. They are spending 400 million rand to revamp their network. They've just completed a procurement process, and this revamp will be completed in the 3rd quarter of this financial year.
And right there, yes. You see, for me, right there, that I jump in, I look at that and I'm saying, you know, the people are listening to you, they say, politicians, you like to go to parliament, stand there and say, oh, this is how much I'm spending. CETA is going to revamp the entire network. Yes. It's only going to happen in the third quarter. But you're already going to start spending money now, which means maybe right up until September, I might not even be seeing any much of a difference as far as the queuing is concerned. So it's the time frame in which you're setting to implement these issues that maybe people would have a problem.
No, Thabo, look, it's like saying I'm building a double-story house and giving a period which it takes. They have just started to revamp the network. And I'm saying they promise us that they'll finish. I'm not an IT person.
Yeah.
I have to listen to what CETA is saying. That they promised us that they will do this, and they said in the third quarter, they will have completed the work. It's not something that you do in one day.
Yeah.
But as you are aware, as you have said when you started, we are not only relying on one issue to deal with the queues. I've mentioned about 12 issues today, if not 13. So the first one is this revamping the whole network, because it's a problem. It's old.
Right.
That's why it keeps on tripping and all that.
Yes, yes.
The second thing, they are implementing what is called software-defined network, or SDN.
SDN.
This one has already been concluded.
So here again, sorry, I'm going to jump in because I want us to get into the granular details. So you're saying the software, right, SDN. What does it help that we conclude the upgrade and the implementation of the software if the whole entire network is pretty much useless to us at this particular point because it keeps on crumbling? Is that a good use of the resource?
Now, Thabo, you are putting me in a very difficult position. You are asking me a question that should be of IT engineers. I know nothing about IT. Yeah. I'm just reading to you what we agreed with CETA.
Yeah.
That they are doing this, and remember they are doing this on their own. We are not even there. It's CETA doing their things.
But are they explaining to you? I mean, are they explaining to you that if we implement this software upgrade, is this going to help immediately now with the downtime?
No, when you put things together, all together, they will help.
Yeah.
And everything can only happen at its own time. They will put up the software. I mean, they've already finished that. Yeah. But they are still busy with the whole network to overhaul it.
Okay.
Then there is the issue of internet capacity. You see, one of the things that makes it a problem for us, what you said, that you know, the site is very bad about long queues and all that, is that there's no government department in the whole country that needs more internet than Home Affairs. Yeah. Our whole life, I actually said this is sine qua non of our existence. Our whole life is on internet. Yeah. Anything that goes wrong with internet, we get stuck. Yes. For instance, if I give you an example, nobody stops teaching kids at school because the network is down. Yeah. They can continue teaching. Yeah. Even in hospitals, I've worked there, we can continue treating patients. But with Home Affairs, once the network is down, you stop working. Yeah. I mean, in the front
if the network is down here, we also stop working here.
Yes.
In the media, because there's nothing that we can do. But let's talk then about that. And then the internet capacity increase. So you're saying you've introduced some redundancy in Tshwane, Cape Town, as well as eThekwini, which are what you call a failovers, or at least that's what they told you. They're introducing 3 failovers, so that at a given time, when the system is down, there's a backup that will come up and be able to assist. Is this redundancy particularly prioritized for Home Affairs, or is it for all departments in government, and you will get a portion of that?
Well, this one is specifically for us, as we asked.
Yeah.
Yes, because we are the ones who definitely need redundancy. If other government departments will use it, I'm not sure about that. But when we went to negotiate with CETA, we're negotiating redundancy, that we can't have a system whereby if something is down, there's no backup. Yeah. And we've been negotiating it for the past year. I'm not sure whether any other department will use it, but we definitely need it.
Okay. And this, you're saying it's already in place. It has been created already, those.
Yes, they've been created here in Tshwane, in Cape Town, and in eThekwini.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's move on then. Talk about why are we waiting on the plan for cybersecurity? Because I suppose that is also linked to the question of the banks coming on to help you. Because if your systems and theirs are connected and yours is not secured, it will create all sorts of problems for them. Why are we waiting for this approval, and why is it taking so long for law enforcement to approve this cybersecurity plan?
Yeah, we're waiting for them. I really cannot respond for them. But we can't go on until the law enforcement agencies have given approval. Obviously, they're going to check about safety issues. I don't know how they do that. But we are happy that SETA is now committed to spend 1 billion rand on infrastructure support, which is for the whole government. But we know for sure that Home Affairs is going to be a major beneficiary of this. Yes.
You speak of bringing in these engineers, then 8 IT engineers. You're not specific there. You're saying they'll be joining us soon. What are the issues that are not allowing you to be specific and put a timeline to when the 8 engineers will be coming on?
Well, because first of all, Thabo, the reason that we are bringing the engineers is because, as I said in the speech, we stand in EU when our systems are down.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to queue.
Yeah.
And we ask ourselves, but in the banks, they seem to be getting it right. You have never gone to the bank and waited for 3 hours because systems are down. If it happens, it's very rare. Yeah. But in Home Affairs, it's quite continuous. So we approached the banks, those who are working in partnership with. We approached them and said, can you help us look into this issue? How do you do it? Can you offer us your engineers who make your system stand up all the time and not go down? But then we had to go through several processes of negotiation, and they also have to be vetted because they are moving from the private sector into the government, and we don't do the vetting again. Okay. It's done by the security agencies. Right. So they've just completed the vetting. We are finalizing the final service level agreement on how are they going to help us. Because we have been working with the banks, by the way, for quite some time, because we thought part of relieving the problems in Home Affairs is to go to the bank and get served.
I mean, there was a point where they were giving us IDs. Is that particular relationship still on?
Yes, and I will tell you where it got a little bit slow. They were not telling us, but we made that ourselves that, no, this is the problem. They were not moving fast enough until we had to ask them directly, and of course they confessed. Because if you go to a bank to take a passport and ID, the system that they will still have to get into is the National Population Register to check. And when the systems are down, that's what goes down. And it means even if you go to a bank, you'll experience the similar thing. Well, you are not in Home Affairs. So we thought the banks are scared of their reputation, that people will queue there, coming to take an ID, and because they book online and get an appointment and you go to the bank, when you arrive there, the Home Affairs system is down. So we thought the banks were really scared of their reputational damage in that regard. And that's why we called them in and say, look, please help us. Because they said, if they help us to issue especially smart card, it will save the banks 50 million rand per annum in identity theft. Yes, so it's also something that is going to help them. And the 50 million, I think, is 2 years ago. It might be more now. They said if every South African carries a smart card, no longer the green barcoded ID where you can remove the photo, it will be so secure that it will be better for the banks. So they are eager to move ahead, but they were let down by our systems, Downtime. And that's why they were very eager when you say, okay, come and help us. Let us be like you. Let us not be having systems that are always down. Let us be like the banks. And we believe once that happens, they'll open their doors for all the branches, so that instead of going to Home Affairs office, you can go to a bank.
266 million, the minister saying they've got now from Treasury to push up their staff levels from 39% to 42%. We'll talk more on that and what the unions are saying, especially around the working hours. Dr. Motsoaledi, Minister of Home Affairs, staying with us in focus, continues in a moment. Let's hear your views as well tonight. 072-110-5584. Otherwise, you can tweet us tonight at Newzroom 405. Back in a minute. Back tonight, live with us here on In Focus, Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. We have the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Motsoaledi, presented budget number 5 today in Parliament, of course, outlining some of the priority areas around civic services as well as immigration that he is going to deal with. So you seem to be on a collision course, maybe at least with some of the unions, particularly around this staffing issue. You are still not nearly where you need to be. I mean, with just 42% of the staff that you're able to do with the budget that you have right now, it certainly means that you are still going to be looking at this issue of overtime and working over the weekend. And the unions are saying you're trying to bring this via the back door by declaring them an essential service and so on and so forth. How are you going to deal with this challenge of staffing?
Well, Thabo, there's no government department or no minister, and I said this earlier on. Before Minister Ayanda Dlolo, the former Minister of Public Service Administration, before she left for New York, she called a summit with the unions, and I said this to them because I was one of the speakers, that actually there's no minister who will be happy running a department with a shortage of staff. The shortage is because of the budget cut, as I've already said. That Treasury said, we are putting a ceiling, you don't hire more people. I will be the happiest person if we can fill all their positions. That's why we developed a business plan to Treasury. Unfortunately, they could only give us 266 million, which is still not enough, but we understand, because we understand the issue of the economy. But we said, please, Minister, try to increase the amount every year. This 266 million is just going to move us to 42% of our staffing, which is still very, very low. At least if we can move to something like 60% and say we've got a shortage, but we are at 60. So that one, I'm not clashing with anybody. I definitely want it to happen as of yesterday. And I'll be happy if the finance minister can be able to solve it for us. The fact that he understood this time around means that we are on course for him to understand.
Have you worked your thinking around how many graduates you're going to put onto the system with that 266 million? Because I see one of the opposition parties raising this issue with you, saying, well, if you're going to hire people, make sure that you hire the unemployed graduates.
Well, we hire anybody who is suitable. It's not only graduates who are unemployed. We hire anybody who's suitable for that.
You're not going to prioritize them, maybe? No,
but obviously a person with qualifications is always prioritized, because the advert comes up with the qualifications that are needed. But the issue of unemployed graduates specifically is what the President announced during the State of the Nation address, that because it's our own plan, that we're going to hire 10,000 unemployed graduates to digitize our records. And they'll be on the job for a period of 2 to 3 years, digitizing 300 million paper records, which we have got. Our record stretches back from 1895. They are all paper records in archives.
You mentioned that. You're saying that in essence, that's part of what's adding to the queues. You say you'll come in, you're changing, for example, your surname or name change or whatever. Your notification of name change.
If you tell us that
300 documents.
If you say this Mdluli, it's not my original surname, it was a mistake, I really want to correct it. I've just been delaying. Once you come to Home Affairs and give details, they must go to the archives and go to search among 300 million records, your file, and find it and find out 60 years ago when your great-grandfather maybe came to Home Affairs, what was written in there. Because we don't just change. And many people believe it's easy to change somebody's name, surname, or even date of birth. They'll just come and say, look, my date of birth is wrong. Can you change it? We don't just do it. And I'll tell you why. And I want people to understand that. When you change your date of birth, we change your ID number. We change your identity. And quite a number of times people do that for sinister reasons. Because they are running away from their ID. Either they owe people or they committed a crime. And they want to come and say, but this is not me. Me is this one. And so we want to go to the records and say, have you ever registered your name in a different way? When we are changing, where are we changing from? And why are you changing? Now, that takes time if it is not computerized. Like now, you are just pointing at the computer, pressing, and things appear. But with us, we must go and look for a paper record. And that's frustrating. But apart from that frustration, the paper records fade. We may actually lose these records. And what are these records? Is records of birth, death, marriage, ID, passport from 1895. And so those are very precious records. But having them on the fingerprints means they are safe, but our work is also faster, because I will tell you why. You go to Home Affairs, you do that, we go to their records to check your file and guess and say, come in 2 weeks' time, maybe we'll have found it. And you come back in 2 weeks' time, you queue it, we don't find it. You find that the same person comes about 3 times to Home Affairs. If you can eliminate that, it will also help to reduce the queues.
So how soon is that work, and how much of that falls within this 9.4 billion that you've taken?
No, it's a different program altogether. It's not part of this 266.
Okay.
Yes, we need a lot of money more than 266. Because remember, 266 is, once it's in, is forever, it can't go out. But this particular one is for a particular period. In other words, it's going to be contract work for 2 to 3 years, where you do this work and it's completed.
Are you going to tighten that? You're going to find yourself in the same trouble as your health counterpart, who brought people in to help with the health services for COVID, and they couldn't get, well, now they had to, of course, terminate the contracts, and that has put them at loggerheads with the people and the nurses in particular.
I've already been there, by the way, long before COVID. Remember, I was in health. We had a situation where the EU agreed to help us in 3 areas: financial management, IT, and HR, where we recruited 400 unemployed graduates who are all graduated in those areas of finance, HR, and IT. And the EU helped us to send them to School of Governance, and they were giving them a stipend. And then from there, when they completed, they said we'll pay them for 3 years, after which the province will take over. And we sent 40 to each hospital to help. And Thabo, they were doing marvelous work. But guess what? At the end of that 3 years, province just said, look, we don't have money. Minister, we don't have money. I really pleaded because I was desperate, because I knew they were good. They were good. They said, well, we don't have money. There's nothing we can do. That matter went to court. And of course we won it, because it was very clear on the contract that EU will pay you for this much, and if there's space, the province will hire you. So we are going to be very careful when we fashion this contract. That is for a period of 2 years or 3 years. Of course, it's human to say, look, man, I've been doing this work, is there anything more? And we are hoping that it won't stop there. We are hoping there will be, because there will also be trained. It's not only going to be digitizing record, it's also being trained in some way. We are even going to work with some institutions like universities to accredit what they are trained for. And we believe when they finish there, they might be in demand elsewhere within the state and the private sector.
Now, we can spend the whole night on civic services, so we have about 2 or so minutes left. Let's quickly talk about the question that you're raising on immigration. You say you're not even going to spend time on immigration, because that needs a budget all by itself, because it needs a complete overhaul. What does that mean?
I didn't say it needs a budget. I said the budget vote means
it will need a budget vote.
Yeah, not really a budget, because the budget is not really the problem we're facing on. Of course, money is always needed, but the biggest problem we're faced on immigration is not really much of the budget, even though it can make a difference. So when I said it needs a budget, I said budget vote of its own, meaning a whole speech. Because there are lots and lots of things, Thabo. to mention that needs to be changed. So I just used one common word, overhaul.
Yeah.
You need to overhaul the whole system, because the whole system is not working very well, and it has been wrong. And there are reasons why it's wrong, Thabo. If you look at the history of the continent, the Citizenship Act in South Africa was developed in 1995. The Refugee Act in 1998, and the Immigration Act in 2002. What was happening? There were winds of change in the continent, Thabo. Africa was democratizing very fast. Countries that never used to have anything called election started holding elections. Countries that never cared anything about constitution started respecting constitution. Countries where there was no term, you could be a president for life, started making terms and say you can only go for 2 terms, democratic elections. So it was very good for the continent. Nobody expected that anything will go wrong anywhere. And that is the time when all these laws were enacted. In other words, they were enacted in a different era. We are now in a contemporary era where we realize that some of the things cannot just happen. And that's why we need to overhaul the whole system. The other thing that is going to be overhauled, we have checked many countries, especially in the developed world. When you come in and say, I'm an asylum seeker, they deal with you right there at the borders. And the people who assess you are quite senior. Some of them are retired judges. And you know why? The international immigration laws, as enacted by the United Nations in 1951, the 1951 Convention, and the 1969 Protocol, are very complex issues. Even the United Nations alluded to that on the 25th of January this year. They said they are going to come here to South Africa to ask a meeting with the judiciary to workshop them, because these things are complex. But when you go to Home Affairs, it's not even legally trained people who do the first assessment. So those are the things that we need to change, such that if you arrive at the border and say, look, I'm an asylum seeker, you need to have somebody who highly experienced and highly competent, so that it doesn't have to be reviewed again.
So I can argue that that's the next level of this conversation. But Minister Motsoaledi must deal with the fundamentals, the basic things at the port of entry. Make sure that you don't have characters there that are taking 30,000 here and 15,000 there and are making people pass by. And when you want to make an example, don't just deal with those officials, but also deal with the high-powered people that are behind them, right? You're saying you've arrested a couple of people. People look at that and they say, no, you've arrested officials there on the ground. Where are the powers at the top that are funding these people in these operations? When are you arresting them?
Well, Thabo, I once appeared in one TV station. Let me not mention it because it's not yours, obviously. It's your rival. On 2 occasions. And I said, I want to deal with the crocodiles, not the lizards. Because at the moment, the noise that is made is about poor people who cross the border out of hunger, just to buy a loaf of bread or a bag of meal or do a piece job here and there and get some money. The people who come here illegally, wearing suits and carrying a bag full of money, they are not being tackled. And believe me, I'm tackling them. When we went to the our Home Affairs office in Krugerstop the other time, the person we arrested there, the Pakistani kingpin, he's the one who was running this racket. We didn't just arrest Home Affairs officials who are getting 5,000 rand, or poor South Africans who were going to sell their identity for 500 rand. We were going for the big guns, and we are still busy with investigations about the big guns. Very soon, you will see the results. It's a pity that when you do investigation, you can't come and report back and say, here is where we are about to catch Thabo. No, we can't do that. But believe you me, we are busy with that. We arresting anybody who is found. And unfortunately in Home Affairs, it's not only at the borders, as you are saying. In other government government departments, when they say corruption, they talk about the supply chain area in that unit. In Home Affairs everywhere, when you get into a Home Affairs office anywhere, there's potential for corruption. When you cross the borders, there's a potential for corruption. When you go to the back rooms, there's potential for corruption. And that's why we have established such a strong counter-corruption unit. By the way, we are the only department in the whole government that has got a counter-corruption unit headed at the level of a DDG. The other department, they've got a risk manager, there is a director, maybe a chief director, but we have got a whole DDG whose job is it to look at the issue of corruption, because it can be found anywhere. For instance, I announced today in Parliament that 60% of the work that is being done by counter-corruption is on permitting. Yeah. Permitting for what? People who want to come here, find a corporate visa, a work visa, all these type of visas, and permanent residence visa. These are big people, and who are busy doing investigation, and we don't care what's your status in life. We arrest, because if we don't do that, we'll destroy the country. Today I was referring people to what is in page 3 of Sowetan. An expert there in security was saying, if this matter, especially of passport, if it's not dealt with, you Thabo, yeah, you may believe you are far from it. Yeah. But do you know that it affects you? Yeah. Even if they don't steal your passport. All right. Because you'll go overseas to the UK and they start doubting
the credibility of your document. Let's take some questions quickly. We're running out of time. The minister promised to report on illegal foreigners who are now in high positions here in South Africa. Where is that report? Anonymous. Let's get some more. Oh, right there you are. Another one from Anonymous. Greetings. Please ask the Home Affairs Minister how many vacancies will be prioritized for persons with disabilities. Also, will those businesses that are found guilty of hiring illegal immigrants be fined? Please ask Dr. Motsoaledi about people who applied for the permanent residency and waiting for more than 3 years while not being able to work because of having no work permit. We can start with that, people with disabilities, and the report that you had promised.
Yeah, well, Thabo, I'm sure you are aware that in government, it's already a policy that certain jobs must be for people who are disabled. There's a quota which every department must reach. As I'm sitting here, I really don't know. They'll tell you that at least 2% of the whole staff or 3%, and a department will say we are at this area. So when you advertise post, you consider that. It's like the issues of gender. Yes. So I can't sit in here and know very easily at what level are we and how many. But at the moment, we have advertised more than 700 posts, among which we would like to deal with the issue of gender and disability. Now, the issue of the report. Yes, I said, you know, when you do investigation, Thabo, people believe you only investigate for a day or two and get the answer. Investigation takes long. You can look at the hawks. People are making noise that they are not moving. Some of the investigation take long because the people who are doing this are not fools. Many of them are very much aware of what they are doing, and they hide their trail. And when you just come out and say, I caught Thabo, they hire very big lawyers, they go to court, and if you can't convince the courts, because the courts want to be convinced beyond reasonable doubt. And that's why it takes so long. We're still on. We're still on with this investigation, and very soon we'll actually bring them out.
Minister, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on tonight. Unfortunately, that's all we have to leave it for tonight. The Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Motsoaledi, packing with us this evening. His budget vote number 5 presented to Parliament earlier on today.